Welcome back to part 2 of my walkthrough through my song, I Can See the Light. Let me show you how I caught my vocals in Ableton. I'm gonna record a pretend take here. So I record as a loop, and then step 1 is pinning this back to the beginning. Step 2 is I have mapped a key command to the loop button, so I'm gonna hit that. And then step 3 is I can start chopping this up, and if I make a slice here, Command E to edit it, what I'm doing is I'm hitting the up and down arrow on this loop brace, and that's gonna let me comp the vocal how I want it. So I know Live 11 has take comping, which I will probably use, but this way is great because that way I can sing each word like 7 or 8 times and hit the down arrow and go between the best takes. So that's how I comped it right in here. A couple other things that I do here before I actually mix the vocal is I like to take the clip gain and make all the waveforms about similar in height, and that way I don't need to add as much compression. I like to also take the S sounds and turn those lower, maybe about 10 dB lower than the rest of the audio. And you can see I'm also cutting out dead area and breaths. Let's take a look at the main vocal here. The tunnel ride will get you home. That was with no effects on there. Looks like I've got some compression going on. The tunnel ride will get you home. Then I've got Nectar 3 for some pitch correction. That's all it's doing. I'm in the key of G major, and I've got an 18 millisecond retune speed, so it's not too fast. The tunnel ride will get you home. Sometimes I also have to automate clip transpositions. If the, yeah, there's one. See how, you can see I've automated the clip transposition because I have an issue where I start the beginning of my words a little flat, so I sometimes, let's hear this one. If without it, I'm kind of bending up. So I like making this little ramp here. Sounds a little funny on its own, but when I layer it, if I just play with this ramp, it can sound better. Something that I never knew for a while is if I hold shift, I can go by semitones here, or by cents. So I'm comping my best part. You can see that I've sang this thing probably about 12 times. Sometimes I'm singing the whole thing, and then sometimes I'm singing just certain words. That way I can hit those words as good as possible. I've got the Complex Pro algorithm on. Another thing to point out is before I would even automate the ramp of the clip transposition, I would just take the detune, and the point of this is to make it not sound squirrely into the auto tune. So let's hear this at what it was. If I detect a weird sound, I'm trying to fix the pitch. And I'm probably doing that before even Nectar is on. So before I even add Nectar, this is flat. Or a little sharp, so I'm bringing it down a little bit. And then I'm gonna check it later with Nectar. And the whole point here is to save the time of not having to go to Melodyne, which I could do, but I like to do it this way. Because I'm layering my voice so many times, I don't want to take the time to go to Melodyne personally. So I just wanted to point that out. The tunnel ride. I've got an EQ on here, cutting out the low frequencies. And I've got a saturator up 8.5, down 9, and the soft clip is on. So it's not really getting that much louder, it's just getting a little bit of color. So this is without the saturator. The tunnel ride. And with the saturator. The tunnel ride. So fairly saturated. This is going to send A, return A. On return A, usually I use Valhalla plate on this, but I guess I'm just using Ableton's reverb for this one. That should be 100% wet, 3-second time, and I'm cutting the low frequencies out of the reverb. That's about it on there. This goes to a group. On the group, I'm just cutting out low frequencies. So that's pretty much my main vocal right there. We embark the other side. Let's check out the background vocals. So I always like to double my main vocal with a high falsetto that's exactly an octave higher. Sometimes it's too high for my range, so you can see that this is up 2. So what I did is I went to the guitar loop and pitched it down 2, more than it usually is, and then recorded it. And then after I'm done recording, put the beat back up 2 and put the vocals back up 2. And that's why these are +2, and making sure this is the Complex Pro algorithm. And so I've got my high falsetto part. To save time, I usually just like to duplicate this main track, so it's the same effects usually. All I'm doing is adding the Haas effect. So let's hear without any Haas effect. And with at the same time as the main. And the point of the Haas effect is to make it sound wide. The tunnel ride will get you home. And I wouldn't put this on the main part, but I think it sounds kind of cool as the high octave doing that. Sometimes I'll, auto-tune this more or saturate this more than the main vocal. In this case I didn't, it's all the same. So I was pretty quick to do. Let's move to the other parts. Here are the vocal oohs that I do in the verse. Let's hear them. So I'm doing this 3 times. Here's the main one. Same chain as before. This one's down the center. Here's a second one that's panned a little right. Quieter in volume. And it looks like I put a rack here with a dry chain and a wet chain just to make it more reverby than the main one. This compressor is not doing much over there. Here's a second one that's panned 31 left. And same kind of thing. So pretty simple there, just the use of singing it 3 times to making it sound wider. But if we look at this group here, I've got CLA vocals on the group of the oohs, pushing up the reverb a little bit of compression, a little bit of stereo, less bass, not much slapback delay, a little bit of reverb. Looks like I filtered the reverb, and just 30% wet, and then some saturation after the reverb, only 60% wet. Something to point out here is I'm gonna use warping to make my high falsetto match the timing of the main as perfectly as possible. You can see I've added a warp marker here. I'm not afraid to warp my high falsetto to really match the shape right above, using my eye to make these things lock with my eye. For the chorus, I'm using similar processing. I've got my main vocal. I can see the light. I sing it again a little bit softer. I can see the light. So same melody, same range, but I'm singing it a little bit differently. And then I'm gonna put on the Haas effect on this one. So this is the main and the main with the Haas together. I can see the light tonight. That's hopefully to make it a little more powerful. And then I'm doing the same thing with the high falsetto version. I can see the light tonight. That's it, pretty similar to the verse processing. For chorus 2, I'm adding 2 harmonies. This is something that I do frequently in my music to make the second half of my songs keep changing slightly and get bigger, more complex. So here's the main part. I can see. And if we add the harmony. I can see the light tonight. So this one's actually staying pretty flat in pitch, like a constant in pitch. I can see the light tonight. I don't even know if you would call that, I guess you'd call it a harmony, but it's not moving with the main. It's kind of just hitting the root note or the 5th maybe. This one's panned left. Here's another one. I can see the light tonight. I can see the light tonight. Together, these are creating the interval of a perfect 5th, and they're pretty constant. So it's a little different. I probably tried your more normal harmony where you sing a 1/3 above the main, but that didn't work. That's why I settled on that tactic here. I can see the light tonight. Looks like I muted the falsetto for the first half and then brought that in for the second half of the second chorus. I can see the light tonight. After I commit to the vocals, I export that as an acapella and bring it into a new session. Here's that. I'll get you home. I can add additional editing like turning the S's down, cutting more harsh frequencies, writing the volume more. I like to add reverb throws here and more reverb. So it looks like I did finally get to use the Valhalla plate over here.
I'll be alright.
On return A, I'm cutting out the lows of the Valhalla plate and just leaving it at 3 seconds for that section. And then over here, I'm sending it to the audio damage EOS reverb on return B. This is my favorite big reverb. The Super Hall preset sounds great. It's 10 seconds long. Cutting out the lows of that. Typically I'll sidechain that to the kick drum. Sometimes I'll choke this reverb pretty frequently, so it looks like I'm choking it here because I don't want that to get in the way of my drop usually. Yep. Little snap off there. I did a couple other little tricks here for the drop. I pitched up an octave. Let's take off all the effects. Got some volume control, got some EQ, Valhalla vintage reverb. Very subtle, but notice I'm automating the decay time to come up. That is before OTT. I love the sound of reverb before OTT. 50%. The output of the highs is only going up 4 dB though. Another OTT. Looks like I'm automating this for a special swell in this gap. Looks like I muted it though. But I'll do that where I'll automate the amount of the OTT to swell after reverb. And then I've got this formant filter from Infected Mushroom, and I'm a manipulator, and I'm automating the formant to change, and that's what's giving it that cool sound. Could go the other way with it. Looks like I'm adding some reverb throws on that one as well. The last little trick that I do here is the reverse reverb trick. So the way that I do that is I will take the first word of a section, like right here, bring that down, crop that. And on here, I've got EOS. So I'm gonna crop just the first word where I can say I, add the EOS. Then I'm gonna freeze, flatten, and reverse this track to create this swell that'll add tension before the drop. So that concludes the vocal production for this track. Make sure to stay tuned for the next video where I will explain how I did the synths and the drums and the bass for the song. Stay tuned. Make sure to follow me on Instagram too if you'd like to see more tutorials. All right, peace out.